Hey guys, welcome to day 18 of One Zentangle A Day. It's wonderful to see all of your smiling faces today. Today we have three new patterns, Gneiss, Cadent, and Huggins. I don't know how you say this one, Gneiss. I'm going to leave the G silent and just say nice. Anyway, before we jump into our patterns, I want to talk about curvilinear distortions. So if we take a look right here at these two different grids, they're the same grid, just a checkerboard grid, but they are curved in different ways. Here in the top one, we've got these curves that go out from the center, which makes it look rounded, like it's bumping up towards us. And then on the next one, we have the curves curving inward towards the middle. That makes it look like a dip, like it's a hole that you could put things down into. And if you look at this Zentangle tile right here, you can see how this grid idea, this curvilinear distortion idea can be done with any pattern. Here, this pattern looks like it's kind of dipping down in the middle here and then raising up, bumping up over here. And then this pattern and this pattern both look like they are bumped up, raised up in the middle. So that can just kind of play with the topology of your picture and help direct your eye through the Zentangle. For our first pattern here of Gneiss, we're going to start with a big old circle and a dot in the middle of that circle. Next, we want lines that crisscross through that dot in the center. So it looks like a pizza that's been cut into 8 slices. Next, we're making this little V shape where the crust of the pizza is. So between two lines up here by the crust of the pizza, we're going to make a little V shape. And a V shape. That makes these look like arrowheads pointing in towards the center. Notice how I'm turning my paper so that I'm making the same V-shaped mark. Every time I move my pen, I'm moving it the same way. Next, we're going to connect the V's straight through the center of the circle. So that splits our pizza slices in half along that the points of those V shapes. And it really makes this turn into almost a star kind of a shape here. And on each one of these points of the star, it's 2 triangles. We're going to darken in the one on the left side. Again, I'm going to rotate my paper so that I'm always looking at it the same way. This is the point of a star and it's 2 triangles, and I'm going to darken in the one on the left. Always stay consistent with that. You don't want to switch sides. Here's looking at another point, color in, darken in the one on the left. And when you finish darkening in the very last point of the star, you should have something that looks like this. It looks like a sort of an 8-pointed star with a circle around it. And then the last step is to make more of those circles inside and outside of the one we've already made. So it's like auras. The ones wrapping around the outside are super easy. It's just a circle around a circle around a circle. You don't have to do anything fancy. Except maybe at the edges of that shape, you need to kind of crop the edges of your circle. But then inside here, this gap here between the inner point of the star and the edge of the circle, we do want another circle that overlaps behind the star in that gap. And maybe 2 or 3, depending on how big your gaps are. Now, if you want to make this really pop off the page, you can use the curvilinear grid idea, and instead of having this be in the center, you can use curved lines to make the star shape kind of pop. We also can shade the area behind the star. This circle area behind the star in particular can help really make that star itself pop off the page. Like that. There you have it. Moving on to Cadent. Now notice here we have a grid of circles. They're just nice, neat, organized rows. This is a square grid. You can also do this with a triangular grid or an iso grid, and it would look like this at the end with triangle-y shapes instead of square-y shapes. But here I'm going to do it with the square grid. So it's just spacing out some circles, evenly spaced, and make sure they're the same distance vertical as they are horizontal. So the next one here, and then going off the edge. Connecting them, what we're going to do is these S shapes that wraps around to the left of that circle and then around the right side of that circle. So it's like a big S that wraps around those two circles. And then starting at the top of this circle, we're going to make another S that wraps around that way. And then we want to do the same shape, but going horizontally, crossing from right to left. To do that, I'm actually going to rotate my page and do the same S shape, wrapping around the top of this one, the bottom of that one. That way, I'm still making the same movement, the same stroke with my pen that I was making before. To me, it kind of looks like little starfish kind of things, or another way to look at it, it kind of looks like it's a little scroll of paper that's just been rolled over itself a couple of times. Moving on to the Huggins pattern. For Huggins, we're going to start with, instead of a row of circles, we're going to start with a row of dots. We're making a grid of dots. Just like before, we want to evenly space them out. So they're going to make a square-shaped grid of dots. And this time, instead of connecting with S curves, we're going to connect with C curves, but they're stretched out, and they switch sides back and forth. So going vertically, we're going to make a bump to the left, then a bump to the right, then a bump to the left. Now when we come up to the next column, we want to flip it. So it's going to go the opposite direction. This one bumps to the left, so the one next to it bumps to the right. Then we're going to rotate 90 degrees and do the same thing, but here's the thing. We want to make sure that where these bump in, this side bumps out. And where these bump out, the sides bump in. So here, where the top and bottom bump out, the left and right bump in. Then out, then in. Now, with a little bit of clever shading, we can actually make this look kind of three-dimensional, like there are ribbons of some kind being woven into each other. Now that we have finished our 3 different patterns, we're going to make a Zentangle tile, but we're going to try to do some of this curvilinear distortion on some of these patterns. So to do that, I would make my grids curve instead of nice and straight. Alright, so I'm not super happy with the way this turned out in the end, but it was fun to play around with how I've spread things out a little bit and then got them closer together. And the grid, changing the grid around does make things kind of interesting. I think this part right here turned out more interesting, this Huggins pattern. But I'm going to call that done for today. If you have enjoyed this series so far, hit the subscribe button, like the video, share it with your friends, and I will see you tomorrow for day 19.